Having a space that's reserved for training and a space that's reserved for experienced players. ArenaNet, what they're doing here is they're essentially endorsing, differentiating between player skill level, right, or experience level. This is a very good thing because it's one of the really big problems with the LFG right now, and one of the really big reasons why people don't engage with the LFG system is because people lie. Yeah, and honestly, there are a lot of things in the gem store that shouldn't be there, right? Like, you know, being able to buy stuff like a single merchant, right, or a single trading post express, why, right? Like, it's such a trap for players to waste their money on.
Actually, speaking of which, someone had mentioned two-handed axes, like two-handed melee axes rather than one-handed ranged axes too. But
yeah,
I think more people want to see.
I actually think that this is more. I don't think ArenaNet should add more elite specializations.
Hi, guys. Today we have a podcast with Teapot because we had an awesome blog post yesterday. And one of the things that I had talked about the other day was what you guys would like to see in Guild Wars 2, whether or not it was in-game or on the Twitter or in the forums. And we got a lot of really cool responses. And so we're going to go over those as well as the blog post because a lot of stuff that we talked about is in the blog post. So we'll do that. And obviously, we haven't sat with Teapot in a while, and the last I knew,
I'm back.
You were, I know, and you were taking a break. I took a break for having Oscar, and then I came back, and I was like, where is everyone? And so I had the podcast with Sneb talking about that, and so you're back. What made you officially take a break, and why did you decide to come back this week?
I'm not even fully back now, you know, so the reason I took a break is it's one of those things that I think people have made it a little bit more than it is. I actually didn't really take a break for any reasons related to the game. It was more that I shifted my priorities, right? I wanted to touch grass a little bit, okay? A little bit of grass touching, specifically doing a lot of stuff in real life, like a lot of working on physical exercise, like trying to unscrew my health up, right? Because I've been going really hard. I've been going crazy on Guild Wars 2 and creating content, right? And doing all this crazy stuff for a while. And yeah, straight up, like the biggest reason why I moved away from streaming was just because I felt myself actually rotting and festering live on stream, which is probably a good sign to stop doing that.
Yeah, probably get outside, change diet a little bit, maybe. So, okay, before we get into anything else, since you had mentioned that this was the reason, I do have a couple of questions. Are you getting more sleep to go along with this IRL priorities and being healthy? Did you fix your schedule? Are you working on fixing your schedule?
Yeah, you know, like it's one of those things that's super interesting actually, and I always, even now, I find it surprising is how tiring streaming is. It's a lot of exertion, weirdly enough. It's like, oh man, like after a 6-hour stream, it's like, oh, I'm worn out. That's it. You know, I've been wiggling my arms around for ages, right? I'm like, oh God, give me. It's like, I need a break. And yeah, like all of a sudden not having that, it's actually really weird how non-tired I am the entire time. I'm like completely wired, right? Like staying up all day, right? But yeah, I'm trying to get some extra sleep in, get fresh, proper recovery, and have a schedule that makes some kind of vague sense. So hopefully I can maintain that, you know? That's,
Yeah, right? And with coming back and having a schedule that makes sense, are you going to continue with a schedule that's only like, you know, like 3 or 4 days a week rather than doing like the everyday and just having Wednesdays off, or supposed to have Wednesdays off, even though you would stream on Wednesdays anyway?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to stream a lot less for another few weeks, I think. because I've got some really big priorities that I want to work on, and that's specifically a lot of stuff with Hardstuck and a lot of stuff with YouTube. I want to really get into doing proper YouTube content, and I've got a lot of backlog to clear. Right, I've got a lot of stuff to work on with the website. I've got to get people organized. I've got to do all the YouTube stuff. I've got a load of development work to do for some upcoming tournament events and future tournament events and so on. So there's a lot of stuff that I want to kind of clear out, while still doing a bit of streaming here and there. Like, yeah, I think, what you said there was pretty accurate. It's going to be 3 or 4 times a week, that sort of thing. But really focusing on making sure that I'm happy with where a lot of my projects are. Because that was definitely the 2 big motivators on why I just completely disconnected for a while, is that I wanted to be healthier. And secondly, because I wanted to readjust my priorities with regards to content creation, because I simply just wasn't very happy with the state of where I was with what I was doing. Right, it's just not good enough. Needs to be better. New strategy.
No, that's awesome, and hopefully all of that works out with having that breath of fresh air. Wow, words. Hardstuck was hard stuck until I. Oh, hard struck. No. You're hard stuck in the game in Guild Wars 2.
Yeah,
Can't play anything else.
True.
Hard stuck, no escape. No, but that's awesome, and I hope that it continues to work out and that you feel better about coming back and doing that. You are surrounded by coffee right now. How do you feel about that? I got picked on for one of my latest podcasts. So for anyone who doesn't know, I've been doing podcasts not on a regular basis, but I've been doing them for like 2 years now, and I got picked on saying that I was copying tea time. So how do you feel being surrounded by, I don't know if you have the stream up, but you're surrounded by coffee beans.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I've got the stream. It feels good. It feels good. That they say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And yeah, you have ripped off my show, and I'm very upset about it, as you can tell.
And speaking of which, I totally forgot to do this. I wanted to add like an actual segment at the beginning and talk about coffee. So I am actually drinking iced coffee. I'm back to being able to have closer to my normal caffeine intake after having Oscar. So it's official. He's going to be 2 months on Saturday. So I am actually having, oh my gosh, I don't even know what kind. I think this is Caribou coffee, which is a Midwest thing, and it's like their like medium blend. So yeah, I wanted to do like a full coffee segment and do reviews, and I keep forgetting, so I'll have to add that. But let's get right down into it. How do you feel about the blog post as a whole? Now, I know you did a video on it. If you could kind of like condense and summarize how you feel about just everything that was in the blog post.
So the blog post had loads of really, really good stuff in it. And I think, maybe it's better to talk about a few different things, because we could go through all of it and say, oh yeah, this is really good, this is really good. But I think the really key point there, the summary of it, is that ArenaNet are demonstrating that they are actively looking to fix problems with the game. And that might not sound like some kind of crazy revolutionary thought, but like, wait, the devs are fixing the game? Who would have seen that one coming? Well, in Guild Wars 2, you wouldn't have seen that one coming. And, it almost feels like a dead horse to even bring this up. But Arena is historically infamous for saying, right, done, move on, and never looking back, and never, ever, there's like, just pretend it doesn't exist, right? It's not real. If we don't look at all these horrible issues with the game, they can't hurt us, right? So the fact that they are now saying, okay, right, let's see some of these things. How could we fix it in a way that isn't going to break our back from a development perspective, but it's also going to greatly increase the quality of life for the players? We see that with the raid embolden system, which is actually very reminiscent, as I understand it, of the Final Fantasy Echo system, I believe.
It is.
Which is very cool stuff. Basically a raid easier mode, and the more you wipe, the stronger you get, which is very cool stuff. Love to see that. Amazing balance changes, like addressing some of these key problems with boon distribution, specifically quickness and alacrity. Also taking a look at damage builds, making them a little bit more useful and providing more to the group with Might and Fury. Looking at stuff like unique modifiers that have been historically very meta warping, such as banners. We have Spotter in there as well. Mouse contrast, mouse, right? Like that's another like really cool quality of life feature there as well, like a kind of built-in YOLO mouse into the game, all this kind of stuff, right? There's just a lot of small tweaks with the game that are really going to add up, right? Like this is the kind of stuff that, in my opinion, really raises the quality of the game and makes the experience better, right? Like having these grand content releases, that's great. You know, who doesn't love that? I mean, it's awesome, right? Love to see it. But the really important stuff, I would argue, is actually this, making sure that the game experience is good, right? And you have just a positive experience when you're engaging with the game's systems. So yeah, very, very good stuff. And they buff strike mission rewards as well. A lot, actually.
Yes, that's what that was my big thing. Because it was one of the things that I had brought up with Snub too, and I was like, you know, what would make you like have more faith in the game and have more faith in just ArenaNet as a company? And he's like, you know, if there were better rewards, obviously there aren't enough for, you know, people that are hardcore players. Nope. And one of the things that I had suggested, because I'd seen Isa post about it on Twitter, that I had brought up was something along the lines of mount skins being a drop. You know, it could be something that's already on the gem store and just like a recolor or whatever, but that would be a really cool drop, because in, you know, like in World of Warcraft, there was, you would have heroic mode, and if you completed the full heroic mode before it was nerfed, you would get an ahead of the curve mount that nobody could get once it was nerfed. So it was like very prestigious. And so I was really excited about the infusion. You're actually getting a really cool infusion as a drop from the strikes, which is really awesome. So I don't know if everyone has seen it, but it's the Imperial Everbloom infusion, and it actually looks really cool. So I'm really excited about that. That, and I guess the only thing that I was a little confused about, and I don't know how you would feel about this with, or how it will play out, I guess we'll just have to see, is having the actual system for like only was it one raid a week that you could use the
yeah, the Embolden.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you, Embolden. I was like, was it one raid a week?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that it's one raid a week and not all of them?
I think it actually makes a lot of sense. It might sound a little bit weird, like, oh, you have to wait 7 weeks to, you know, to try a different raid, and you have to wait for it to circle around the entire time. But I think it makes sense, because what's their goal? What is their goal with this system? Well, it's to try to get players to try raids. It's not to necessarily make raids totally free. If they did want to do that, they'd have made it way stronger, right? They actually deliberately made it so that it gets stronger and stronger the more you wipe. So the more you try, the stronger you get. It resets once you kill a boss, so you have to start building it up again, right? It's very clearly not supposed to be, we're just, you know, we give up, you guys are never going to learn, we're going to just, it's, you know, a joke at this point. And because of this, they're not looking to just make everything easy all the time. They want to kind of overcome the barriers to entry to the content, and then hopefully players will try the rest of it, right? So having one raid a week means that that's going to be the focal point for new players, right? And that means there's going to be more groups, more training groups, you know, just more people engaging with the content. So it should make that particular raid wing extremely active. And I actually think in general, kind of funneling players towards certain areas of content is really effective for making it seem alive and making sure that players always have someone to play with. It's why stuff like, you know, the rush weeks, the bonus weeks, like Fractals and PvP and World versus World, I think they're great. Right? Because you might go, oh, but wait, why can we have this all the time? Well, it's not special if it's all the time, is it, right? You don't have that excitement, right, with all the players surging around to one location. So I actually do think it is a good idea. You know, when you consider the goals of this system that they've created, I think the decision-making behind that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about the LFG system to begin with, like just changing it to like the experienced and people that are just looking in to have like training and stuff. I just hope that it gets utilized and it's not just the experienced people throwing up a group and still running like the raid trainings that they've already been running, and that it's just a group of new people that's like, hey, let's try this out and use the Emboldened system. You know what I mean? Like, I just hope that both groups are utilized, and I hope that they like progress further with that, because I think that there could be more like not even just a skill level, but being able to actually like tick boxes for like what exactly you're looking for. Like if you're looking for more DPS type players, people that would be more like tanky and like specific boons and things that you're looking for and such. So I hope that they expand on that, but I'm very, very excited.
Yeah.
So
the LFG needs a flat-out rework for systems like that. I think it would be good to have just an entirely renewed system with a much better interface. However, I think what they've done here by adding those two categories, I think it's actually really good. Having a space that's reserved for training and a space that's reserved for experienced players. ArenaNet, what they're doing here is they're essentially endorsing, differentiating between player skill level, right? Or experience level. This is a very good thing because it's one of the really big problems with the LFG right now. And one of the really big reasons why people don't engage with the LFG system is because people lie. Right? They will join groups with absolutely no clue, and they'll tell you that they're experienced, right? This is an unbelievably negative experience for players who are just trying their best and telling the truth, right? It means that you don't trust the system, and the entire system is ultimately based on trust because there's no way to verify. You know, in Guild Wars 2, you can't inspect people's gear. You can't look at people's achievements, right? You can't verify that they actually know what they're doing. You have to trust them. And so having these two categories, I think, is actually really, really good for that reason. And when it comes to like the engagement thing, I think it will be extremely effective. And one of the reasons why I think it will be so effective is because the barrier to entry in raids is almost entirely psychological. And we can see this, but this is not just me like kind of just making
people in chat
here.
have been saying it just now.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
It's completely psychological rather than an actual barrier. And straight up, this is going to help overcome that massively. Why is it that people aren't scared of strike missions? Are they necessarily easier than raids? Actually, no. Harvest Temple is harder than raids, than a lot of raids, in fact. And honestly, Kaineng Overlook is also, you know, it's a pretty meaty strike mission. Certainly, the challenge modes are also damn hard. Certainly a lot harder than almost all raids in the game. You know, Kaineng Overlook challenge were definitely harder. Like, why is that, though? Like, why aren't people intimidated? I honestly think that it is actually just the word raid. Like, people are terrified of that word, and they think they can't do it. Right. And even though this emboldened system doesn't actually make raids that much easier, I say this all the time, and this is a very well-known thing in the Guild Wars 2 community. You don't typically die to a lack of damage in Guild Wars 2. Right. Or DPS or healing. Like, you know, supports are very power crept, so you're always going to have loads of healing, and the DPS checks are very, very low. That's not why you're going to fail. You're going to fail because of mechanical failure, right? And Emboldened won't actually help you that much with this. You're still going to die, right? It will make certain encounters a lot easier, but stuff like Doom, Kadim, Sabbather, right? Even stuff like Slothosaur, Matthias, you're still going to get wrecked on these fights.
And they mentioned that in the blog post. So, like, we're not changing those things. Like, if it's something that's going to like one-shot you, it's still going to one-shot you if you're not respecting the mechanics. So yeah, absolutely. I also wonder if it's something where, and I don't know if anyone in chat has felt like this, but let's, you know, integrate you guys and your experiences a little bit. But I feel like it's also because, especially if you're a new player and you're getting in, like, the raids have been around for however long, and so there's people that are seasoned that have been doing them that have different strategies and such, and so that might be a little bit more intimidating than coming into the game when EoD launches and strikes are new and you get into the strikes on day one and possibly learn them for yourself. So maybe that's a little bit why people would be more apt to try the strikes than they would for the raids, because it came out like when they started playing. And so there aren't really, I mean, obviously there are strats now, but like on day one, there wouldn't have been all of these crazy strats that people already knew and ways to map the area, because the raid wings have a lot of area in between bosses as well, and some of them have like mechanics that you have to take care of in between, like rounding up a bunch of guys and AoEing them down to get into the next area, or standing on a bunch of buttons or areas to get into the next part, or jumping puzzles. So maybe it's just easier for them doing it on day one, being on like a level platform with everyone else, and also the fact that it's just you go in there and it's one boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. I think older content is a bit more. This is actually a super interesting thing in video games. And in my opinion, this happens in all video games, but particularly in video games with small communities, which is exactly what Guild Wars 2 is. Small hardcore communities, shall I say? Right. You end up with this incredibly top-heavy system where there's a lot of players at the top, right, who are very experienced, and a lot of players who are at the bottom, like at the very entry level, right? And not a lot of people in between, right? There's this massive gap, and these communities are very, very separated, right? And it makes it very hard to actually move from A to B, right? Like moving from that entry level spot to a really experienced player. It's actually a bit of a trek unless you're going to be willing to put in quite a lot of effort to do that. Because at the end of the day, really experienced players, they just want to get the job done, right? They don't want to be training all the time, right? And there's definitely a real lack of trainers, right, when it comes down to raids. There aren't enough people who are willing to lead squads. I think Guild Wars 2's slightly complicated combat system doesn't help there that much, but at the end of the day, the game just needs more people who are going to be willing to take the initiative and take the step into organizing their own groups.
And actually, it was funny because for the most part, like we've said, the blog post everything has a lot of potential. Everything is really exciting. And one of the questions that I did receive in a couple of messages on Twitter was because I'd asked what people thought about the blog post. And people were like, so strikes are supposed to be like their current endgame thing, right? And I was like, yeah. And I had a couple of people that were talking about how with these new implementation to raids, maybe there will be another raid. And I also had some people who were talking about the gold difference because they've doubled the gold that you get from the strikes and the challenge modes. And people were saying that they weren't sure if fractals were going to be continued at all, and that's why not only making the loot better for strikes, but kind of replacing that gold per hour for fractals so that they can kind of move away from fractals completely. So I know that those were two different things, but those were some issues that came up. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Fractals aren't going anywhere. They're probably the most popular PvE content in the game right now. Certainly the instant stuff. They are almost certainly going to release more fractals. I mean, this is Guild Wars 2. Are you ever going to get as many fractals as you will dungeons in WoW or Final Fantasy? No, that's never going to happen. Could you see like a fractal every year? Yeah, I could see that. Are they almost certainly working on a fractal right now? Yeah, they almost certainly are. It's such a core component of the end game that there's no way they're going to miss out on that. When it comes to the rewards, I mean, fractals are still really insanely good. You're getting 20, 30 gold from doing fractals every day. The strike mission rewards are weekly, so in terms of actual how much are you getting, the fractals are definitely going to be better. I think it's funny actually, if you can do a clean run of strike mission challenge modes, that's probably some of the best gold in the game after the next patch, right, on June 28th. So the gold per hour is really, really nice. If you can one-shot them, all of them. So that's pretty good, I guess. But yeah, I don't think fractals are really under any kind of threat in Guild Wars 2. I mean, it's as with a lot of things in the game, it's gonna take a while. And in fact, I think we'll see more strike missions than we will fractals, because the thing about fractals is they're novel content, right? So it's a new map, it's a completely new boss with new models, new animations. Whereas strike missions, they have a really big advantage. They're reused assets from the story, and that's ArenaNet's main content. Anyway, that's the bulk, that's the core of the game, the backbone, as it were. So it's actually going to be a lot less work for them, I think, to make strikes. So you're going to see fractals, but the main content is going to be strike missions simply because of the nature of that content.
And I'm actually I thought it was kind of cool. So I obviously had been away and I came back and was doing the Living World Season 1 stuff. And I thought it was so, just speaking of fractals, I was actually really upset when someone had mentioned them going away, because I was like, oh, but I just got the official letter back in the day from Living World Season 1 that was like, oh, all of these fractals are here, and it's like the same thing that you've done in time, and you should head to this area to try them out. And it was like the exact letter in your mail that you had gotten or I assume some close to it, back in the day when Living World Season 1 was implemented into the game to begin with. And I was really excited. So when the person mentioned that, I was like, no, they can't go away because now it's officially in my lore. Like now I'm really excited to do them. But yeah, let's go into, obviously blog post good. I don't think, did you have any like negative feelings about any of that? I didn't. I was just curious before we move on if there was anything that you would have liked to have seen embellished, even though the actual patch notes are coming out soon for the balance patch stuff. But was there anything that you were like, oh, I don't know if this is good enough, or I was waiting for this and it didn't come out?
I mean, yeah, I could nitpick a little bit. I think the armor repair change, I think so basically they made it so you don't have to repair your armor anymore, but they made it so you get a buff when you use an anvil or a repair canister in the game. I think this is totally pointless, and it's just it's like a minor bit of power creep, but also just another confounding and overcomplicated system in the game. Just like, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to want this random buff the entire time because, okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like literally a pointless thing to have in the game. I think it makes no sense to add it. And they also didn't change the requirements of research notes. They haven't modified research notes yet, I think. So for those that don't know, research notes are a component for Generation 3 legendary weapons, both for the baseline versions, but also more so for the variants, right? You need something like 3K to make a Gen 3, like a basic Gen 3, and 10,000 to make one of the variants. And they aren't expensive, but they're just very annoying. I think it's one of the least fun currencies to interact with in the entire game, and that's saying a lot, by the way. And there haven't been any modifications to that. So those are I think the two main things that were a little bit off for me with these patches, with the patch notes.
Yeah, actually, speaking of that, I thought the anvil and the canister thing was kind of weird too. Like for me, I know that people didn't really use them very often or would forget to use them, and a lot of MMOs to repair, like just whatever way you would repair, but it kind of worked a little bit as a gold sink, especially if like, I hate using World of Warcraft every single time for an example, but World of Warcraft, where like, especially if you had like 2 to 3 raid nights a week where you raided for 4 to 5 hours, you would, hit your face against something until, you would wipe until it was clean, effectively, for each boss for a raid. And usually a raid had between like 8 and I think 14 was the most bosses that they've ever had in a raid. And so every single time you would repair, it could amount to being quite a bit per player. And so it made sense as kind of a gold sink. Obviously it wasn't enough, but it made sense. So for me to go to Guild Wars 2 and have them have the anvil available, just like if you died, you would have to repair like eventually, but it wasn't a big deal, but it didn't cost anything, was kind of odd. But the repair canisters, I think, are very annoying. Like I just, and not being able to, sell them or give them away, and you have to destroy them, and for some reason, like me, you end up putting them in your bank, and then you have a ton of them, and it's just like, what is the point? So if they really wanted to keep it in game for some kind of, neat, like, memory, I guess, or to utilize it for this weird buff, I think that they could have gotten rid of the canister at least and kept the anvil. I don't know, but I just like, and actually, speaking of which, one of the things that someone had suggested when I was talking about different things that they'd like to see in the game was less items that were bound, so that you could at least sell them at a vendor. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of new players have talked about. They're like, I literally have a ton of trash, or I did too much for this heart, and I didn't hand in all of the items that I looted, and now I just have to go through my bag and get rid of stuff. So I think, I don't know if that would be hard for them to implement, or if they would ever want to implement it, but that would be something that I'd like. I don't know what you think about that, but I would love to see that, because my bags are bad, and I have full bag slots. Not full bank slots, but full bag slots. And it's still bad.
I think better automated inventory management will be really good, right? Just adding like a 1 copper value to a bunch of junk items. I think the concern there will be that you would accidentally sell it sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
So you got to watch out for that a little bit. But I guess you could always buy it back, and as long as it wouldn't automatically sell, I think it would be okay. So you'd have to like manually go through and sell stuff. I think that stuff would be good. Or if there was like a way so you could just make it easier to delete items, right? So just instead of having to do the confirmation every time, just make it easier to delete stuff. I think that would be a really nice thing. Like there's a lot of like item spam in the game, so taking a look at that would definitely be pretty interesting. I think to make it just a little bit more convenient, right? I mean, the game has got very complicated over the years, right? And so there's systems on systems on systems getting piled up, and that does tend to lead to a bit of bloat with the way things are. And yeah, the entire like armor repair system, it was probably a system that should never have been in Guild Wars 2. It's just, the game it very much tries to break away from a lot of MMO conventions, and it was like, oh well, we'll just have armor repairing in the game, by the way. I mean, I guess they wanted to gold sync a little bit, but hell, there's loads of other gold syncs in the game, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah,
like the actual
I think
gold sync.
they should have just killed the mechanic. I think maybe the reason why they were a little bit squeamish about killing it is because they actually sell repair canisters in the gem store, which they shouldn't do anyway because they're insane rip-off actually. So yeah, maybe they'd be a little uncomfortable about that, because if they remove any usage for repair canisters or anvils, then hang on a minute, we've got a permanent Black Lion repair canister in our loot boxes. What are we going to do about that? Right? That's a problem, right? We've got these canisters in the gem store. Hang on, that's real money. What are we going to do about that? And I think that's a very inconvenient issue for them to tackle. I think maybe what they could do is you could like exchange the infinite repair canister for any of the other contracts potentially, right? So you could hand it in and get a bank one out. Something like that could be doable. But I think it gets super weird, right? I think when you're dealing with MTX, removing a system that you were basically paying for, okay, that's a little bit spooky. So that's probably the reason why they went with this.
I wonder how many people actually have purchased repair canisters. Like, I wish we could see data for that, because I just like why, I don't know why you would ever, but I'm really curious. Like, not to put anybody down, if any of you have ever bought a repair canister for any reason, you were like, man, I'm out in the world and I cannot absolutely use a waypoint to get into a city, to go to an anvil or check your bank for a repair canister, and you absolutely had to buy one. But like, I would really love to know how many people have actually purchased repair canisters. Don't judge me.
Straight
Wait,
up.
you've bought one? You've bought one? Why? Or is that a joke?
I have the permanent one, not the single use one. Because it's actually it's a really nice quality of life. Yeah. I bought it for 1k gold a long time ago. It's huge. It's a huge item.
Oh, okay.
Because your armor breaks all the time and you can just boom, insta repair. Yeah.
All right.
It's a big item. Seriously, it actually is a big item.
Everyone's like, the perma thing is worth it. And I'm over here like, I guess it's just because, I'm just like so much of a miser with that stuff that I'm just like, no, people will wait for me and I will go to a city and I will use an anvil. No, I know. He's been a little bit fussy today. Sorry, guys. If you hear him in the background, my husband's taking care of him.
No, I mean, the thing is, I don't want to wait for me, though. I don't like downtime. I want to go.
That's true.
I want a game.
That's very
true.
About. Yeah. We were talking about arms flailing, talking really fast before getting things done in game. So yeah, I can. Yeah. Is it still 1k gold? Like, is it still 1k gold?
It's way more now because of the buff, right? Because now having it is going to be quite valuable.
Because of the buff.
Yeah, so it's actually spiked up like 3 times, 4 times price. So people are all over it. They're going crazy. Yeah, and honestly, there are a lot of things in the gem store that shouldn't be there, right? Like, being able to buy stuff like a single merchant, right, or a single trading post express. Why, right? Like, it's such a trap for players to waste their money on, right? And I think these are some very legitimate criticisms, right? You know, I don't want to go too hard because obviously I'm an ArenaNet shill, but yeah, there are things that are straight shouldn't be sold on the gem store. Hell, I'd even go further. I'd say they should remove blackline keys. I don't think they ever will.
I was going to suggest that.
Yeah, because they probably make a hell of a lot of money from those things. But yeah, in my opinion, a company that, like ArenaNet, that is very well known for actually having a very high ethical standard and making their game consumer friendly, which is great. And they do that. They definitely do that, I would say. I think they're an excellent example in the gaming industry on the whole. Why do they have loot boxes in their store again? What's going on there? I'm not getting that. I'm struggling a bit there. Yeah, I mean, blackline keys shouldn't exist, flat out. Right. And there's a bunch of other stuff like that in the store.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. And it's funny as well because I've been doing these. Oh my gosh, guys, I totally forgot to do it. So I'm doing a gem store giveaway. So worth 1,000 gems. So an item off of the gem store worth 1,000 gems. If you type gem into chat, it'll put you into the giveaway. You only have to type it once. And if you type it more than once, it'll yell at you for spam. So, but yeah, so I've been doing these like gem store giveaways and like, and you know, you can have whatever you want to have, but I'm always a little weirded out when people are like, yeah, can I just do the 5 black lion keys? And I'm like, you can have anything off the gem store worth 500 gems and you want black lion keys. Like that's, and it, to each their own. I don't care, but I'm always a little bit like, really? But we did have a couple of other cool suggestions that I kind of wanted to go over for the game. So one of them that we actually had from a viewer in chat earlier was someone had mentioned an actual like marriage in the game. So I know that people can go to that place in Lion's Arch, the cute little like pond area or whatever, or like the big arches. And a lot of people just like do their RP for getting married there. But in Final Fantasy XIV, there are different tiers of marriage on the store. And so you would like purchase something on the store and you get like perks for being married. So you would get like a 2-person chocobo mount. You could get like cool glamour, which was like a dress and things like that. So I think that's really cool. I know I'm not saying it's Teapot expertise. I'm just saying, like, from a standpoint since we're talking about the gem store and whatnot, I just wonder if that's something that they could have, like, a free version in-game and then a version, like, on the gem store that they could, like, since we're talking about, you know, things that don't necessarily need to be on the gem store, if they could, like, monopolize on that. I don't know.
Boom.
But I saw it in chat, so I thought I'd bring it up. Jeez.
Yeah.
What do you think about
you're in trouble. You're on the ropes. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Gonna drink my coffee over here.
Yeah, you do better take a sip. You're the
keep 1K
going,
gem divorce license.
Keep going.
I'm just saying, like, there could be a free version and then something else. Hey, it
That's
wasn't
true.
my suggestion. I was trying. All right, let me pull up the tweet for these other things so I can quit getting picked on. Okay, so actually, funnily enough, someone said different mouse cursors, which we're already getting a little bit of that from the blog post. But it also mentioned more commander tag shapes and greater degree of flexibility with post-processing effect. Oh, this person also talked about the gem store stuff. Equipment and build template slot expansions to be free. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. But I do like the other... So they have the regular commander tag, and then they have the Catmander. And those are both that you get from, like, gold and, what is it, the World v. World currency in games so that you can actually get your commander tag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think other... You know, if you really cared about your commander tag shape, I don't know what other shape they would... I mean, I don't know if they would change the shape for commander, but maybe, like, add something to the shape that's already there, kind of like they did the ears. I don't know. People might get confused if you have more than one, like, core shape. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they want to go too hard on this, because I think it gets quite cluttery. But I think it could be pretty cool if there was a bit of a rework to this. So you almost had like prestige commander tags in every game. Like, for example, if
Mhm.
you, if you've beaten all of the challenge modes on strike missions or something like that, then you get a special tag for that. If you've got Fractal God, maybe you get a special tag for that or something like that. If you've got a really high rank in World versus World, then you get a special tag for that. If you've done a certain amount of open world meta events, right? You've like repeated, you've grinded them out loads of times, and yeah, maybe you get a special tag for that. I think it's a pretty cool idea. I think that at least looking at the acquisition methods for commander tags, it's a bit weird right now. You have to play World versus World to do it, which is very unusual.
Right.
Considering that's not the only usage. But yeah, you have to play World versus World, which is a little, it's a bit odd. So I think that looking at that acquisition method would be pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would give people more incentive to do other things in the game as well if they wanted their cool tag. So
exactly.
Oh, Tempest and Herald getting love on next patch. I mean, Tempest is, they're adding, was it quickness for Tempest?
Tempest is getting Alacrity, and Herald's getting quickness.
Alacrity, that's what it was. I don't have everything pulled up, but that's cool. Dungeon rework will never come, but they have the just one big dungeon currency. You never know. You never know. A lot of people put out videos about the possibility of new dungeons because of having the global currency. Did you put out a video about that too? About what you thought about
it? Yeah.
So what do you think?
Go watch my YouTube channel, guys.
I'm behind
Ad
from
block
being
off.
gone, so Wait, what happened?
I'm just saying, I'm telling them to watch the ads because I want the YouTube ad revenue. It's all I want. Yeah, I think the dungeon was really cool. Makes the game a little bit simpler because the game is quite complicated. A zillion currencies, maybe not a good thing. Unfortunate for the one guy trying to get to 1 million Ara tokens. He'll never make it now. Unlucky, buddy. Yeah, and that stuff's pretty cool. In general, I think it's good to go back and update old systems. Maybe they'll go back and change the rewards a little bit more in dungeons. They'll fix some of the bugs, right, and polish it up. Maybe merge it into the main story, right? There's a bunch of things they could do with dungeons that I think would make the experience a lot better overall. And in terms of the balance stuff, I think you can talk about Tempest is going to do like this DPS and this amount of boons. It's going to be really good. And I actually do think there will be some really nice Tempest and Herald builds that come out with the patch. But I think ArenaNet need to kind of address the elephant in the room here, and it's that certain builds have there's like when you're looking at a build, you've got a bunch of boxes you can tick. Can you do might? Can you do quickness? Can you do stability? Can you do aegis? Can you do healing? Can you do barrier, right, for example? All that kind of stuff. And the issue that the game is facing right now that won't be addressed with the patch coming up is that there are some builds that tick literally every box. And that in and of itself, this is a concept that in general, this is where the conversation starts to get a little bit tricky, right? And where people start to get lost a bit. The fact that you can have every box ticked is in itself an incredible amount of utility. So in other words, the fact that you have one build that can do literally everything, that is a problem. And it doesn't really matter if you make the other builds like, oh, look, you can do 70% of that now. Nice. There's this really weird dynamic where going from 90% to 100% is a huge difference, right? It might not seem that much because it's only 10%, but it is absolutely colossal. Going from one of those to the other. And that's where a lot of support builds end up right now. It's that, they're pretty good, but they're missing this really important thing that Firebrand and Mechanist get for free. We're going into this really weird zone here because the natural conclusion of this is that ArenaNet have to give every boon to every support, which is a little bit weird, but that's kind of the balance avenue that ArenaNet is going down. It's inevitable that this is going to happen. It will take a lot of patches, but I expect to see there's going to be some pretty serious power creep. Okay, like the game is the power creep is coming. It's on its way in terms of the supports.
I mean, speaking of which, it's just kind of unfortunate because I've seen like I probably should stay off the Twitter, but I've seen people be like, okay, guys, if I'm setting up, a raid group, like I'm going to take as many scourges as I can, over your heal tempest. Like, why would you play heal tempest if you could play scourge? And it's things like that, for an example, for supports that can check every single box. So hopefully, I mean, it would be nice to see other classes and other builds be able to be as good. You know what I mean? Like, never have people be told that they can't do something because of like the class that they're playing, because they're not playing the optimal class. I don't think that happens as often as people say, and you can just create your own group too, but
yeah, it happens
it
before
would be
you
better.
get to a group. It won't actually happen at the point of joining. Like, people don't really care what you play, but it's more like people feel pressured to play certain builds before they enter a group, right? If you're a player going, oh, what should I play, right? You're going to look at all the builds and go, well, this one's clearly a lot better than that one, so I should probably play that one, right? Like, no one's going to kick you for playing the worst build a lot of the time. It's very uncommon, actually. But it's more like before you get to that stage, you're going to go, okay, right, I think I'll make a new character, right? And I'll play this one because I like winning. It's a bit of a tough situation. Like, there are a lot of the poor design decisions that the game has made historically are really coming back to bite it in the ass now, particularly with these new strike missions, because they've actually added, these new strike missions, they've added mechanics. Wow, right? A lot of Guild Wars 2 encounters are pretty golem-y, right? Pretty face roll, not super mechanically intensive. The strike missions are. And it turns out that in Guild Wars 2, close combat builds and range builds have actually been balanced to have about the same damage. And it turns out that when you actually have mechanics on a fight, range builds become insanely strong and melee builds become quite bad. And that's exactly what happened with these strike missions, unfortunately. You're having this, particularly on challenge mode anyway, you're seeing an incredibly narrow selection of builds see a lot of play because they are, to be frank, ridiculously overpowered, and they always have been. Because again, it's actually really weird. It's hard to hold ArenaNet entirely accountable for this because the player base, in my opinion, is actually quite culpable for this too, because they will absolutely scream and shout and complain about builds that are perfectly good, but they don't understand that they're good. The biggest example of this was Scourge. Scourge was absolutely insane from day one of Path of Fire, but it had a relatively low DPS benchmark, and this meant that people didn't play it and thought it was terrible, right? It was complete misinformation. It was absolutely insane from day one, one of the best specs in the game, and it is now still one of the best builds in the entire game, but people didn't realize that. And this means that Arena is in a really weird spot, because they're like, well, hang on a minute, if we buff it, it will be even more overpowered than it already was, but people might actually play it. But if we don't buff it, the game is going to be better balanced, and this class won't be ridiculous, but nobody will play it. So what do you do there? Right? What do you do as the company? It's like a super hard thing. Like, do you just say, you guys are all garbage, you don't know what you're talking about, it's actually good? Do you do that as the game company? I mean,
some of them probably want to.
If I was running the studio, that's what I would do. I would say, you guys are all trash, right? But
I feel like I gave you guys the math in the actual demo of the class that we did live in a guild chat. This is the way it's supposed to work.
This is maybe not ArenaNet style exactly. Another really funny thing was Heal Tempest too. Like, people always hate on a Heal Tempest, but that build was busted. It got nerfed really hard with Ender Dragons. Poor Heal Tempest, but that build was absolutely insane, right? Truly ridiculous. How strong it was. Hell, I got the world record for a full clear with it, like under 2 hours for all 7 raid wings. Then we did lose the record, but we had it. Okay, we were world's first sub 2. Boom. Hell yeah. But still, we did it with like 6 Scourges and Heal Tempest. Nice. Love to see it.
I love how the conversation started with, everything should really eventually get to the point where everything can tick all of those boxes. So, you're not specifically taking something over something else, and then we had 6 scourges and a couple of heal tempests. No, I know, I'm just picking, but
yeah.
So we have another one, a proper tutorial that explains the game as well as level 80 pop-up tutorial that shows and explains all main content at 80. Oh, so something, instead of like getting in-game mail or something like that it just like pops up and tells you, oh, hey, you at 80 you can do fractals, you can do raids, you can do PvP, you can do World v World. Yeah, I mean, that would probably be good, especially for people, if they're trying out Guild Wars 2 from a different game and they don't know where to go once they hit 80 other than like going into Living World Season 2. Actually, some people don't even know to do that for story, to be honest, so.
Yeah, I think...
But they have some pop-ups for certain things.
Yeah, they're not great. They're a bit scuffed. A content guide I think would be huge. So it's like an achievement that would guide you through all different types of endgame content. I think would be really good. An achievement that would guide you through experiencing different types of meta events as you level up. I think that would be really cool. And it exposes you to the stuff so you kind of get familiar with it. I think, that will be really good. That will be my ideal form of tutorial as well. I'm not a huge fan of mechanics tutorials, because I don't think they're very effective. I'm very skeptical about this. I don't think they work very well in any game, actually. I think if you look at the vast majority of players in literally any video game, most people don't really care about game mechanics that much, which is perfectly fair enough, by the way. You want to get in there? You want to just game a little bit of gaming here and there? Love to see that. Nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, most people don't care about mechanics. Players who do will find a way, right? They will always find a way, and they'll get good at the game. But if you don't want to, then you won't. And I think that it's particularly hard to do in Guild Wars 2. I think almost a borderline impossible task, because, look, MMOs are complicated, right? A game like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy, there's a lot going on there, right? These are complicated games. But Guild Wars 2 is like, what if we made the least casual friendly combat system of all time? And then they were like, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And then they did it. Yeah.
And I think, so Falcon had said that you get that, as you level up, it starts to tell you the things that are available and the things that you can expect. But I honestly think it's the presentation of those boxes. For example, like when that comes up for like each 10 levels or whatever, it's like, here's what you have, here's what you'll get eventually. People might either read that the wrong way or click through it because it's just a box with mainly text. But like for when you come back, when you've missed time for like World of Warcraft and you come back and you're like behind on the lore or you haven't done the raids, there's a big box that comes up and it's like split into like sub boxes, and it has like graphics from the raids or graphics from a dungeon or graphics from a quest, and then you'll also get mail that pops up and it's like, oh, you should talk to this person to start the quest in the box. So I wonder if it's the presentation that people miss, and because it's as you level up, people are just clicking through it because it's coming up as you level rather than like completely. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah, the info and like the actual like in your face.
It's got to be much more persistent. It has to be way more persistent. It can't be like a, whoa, one-time notification. No, it needs to be a, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And it wants you to actually go and do stuff. And it won't go away until you've done it, right? Like, that's the way it's got to be. And, I think they're even maybe working on this. Like, this is one of the things that gets brought up a lot. One of the secret things. They accidentally showed off this kind of seasonal achievement reward track thing on one of their End of Dragons beta streams. And it was, they didn't mean to show it, right? It was actually like unintentional, but they were kind of playing around with a feature a bit like this that would give you a list of activities that would get you to try and like every, I don't know, I guess 3 months or so-ish, something like that, right? And it would just tell you to mess around with it and try out some new content. So I think if they are able to implement a system like that, that'll be really good. But yeah, no, it can't just be this like, bzz. No, it needs to be, okay, this is here, and there's going to be a little box for you to tick until you've done it, and it won't go away until you've done it. Because otherwise players skip, you know?
Yep.
No one's reading that. No one's reading that trash, okay? Not even I'm reading that, okay? Gone. Done.
Let's see. Oh, so this person, look, I appreciate that people want balance in game modes. Me, I want housing. Okay. I mean, yeah, I thought that would be kind of cool. I don't know if it's something that most Guild Wars 2 players would appreciate, since they have the guild hall stuff and you actually have to like, capture your guild hall. And I know that you can technically section it off and have people, responsible for their own side or whatever. But I thought housing would be cool just for the idea that specifically in like games like Final Fantasy XIV, you can go back and do like old dungeons, old raids, or go to old areas because they drop things that you can put in your house and you can actually move them and change the dye of them, and you can, change like a bunch of different things. So I think that would be really cool. Yeah, it give you, I mean, I don't exactly know how they would do it. Yeah, exactly. So new decorations for racing. So it would be really cool to have things like that and get stuff for like achievements for your house, or like we were saying, to make like old dungeons in Guild Wars 2, viable for people to go back and have that content that would be, repetitive and keep it relevant, I guess.
I think,
or at least that's what they do for 14. I think that's a good idea. As long as much of it wasn't, but the other thing is too, what's going to be on the gem store and how do they, you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. I think it would be cool, though.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Player housing is one of those systems that genuinely does nothing for me. So I'm not a very good person to give feedback on it. I don't get it. I don't understand what the point of that system is. I just want to hit things with the sword, okay? I want to get in there, set something on fire, right? My bone minions, right? Necromancer, attack, right? Let's fight something, right? It's not for me. I think I'd personally rather see guilds expanded on rather than player housing. Player housing is it's kind of like almost like a solo thing. Obviously, you can kind of invite players in to your house, I imagine, would be like a functionality there. But to me, I just rather see the guild system fixed, right? Make it so that you have this kind of GVG game mode by fixing the world versus world, making it world versus world balance in there, so you can have like proper world versus world fights in the arena. More decorations, changing the decoration cap, fixing the instant issues, adding new guild missions, adding new rewards for engaging with guild activities, right? Improving guild functionality and guild advertising in game, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'd rather see that than player housing. And there'd be a bit of overlap there too, right? Because you have that player housing element already with the decoration system.
And just make it like, more intricate, add the die system to that, or make it so that those items are available from other things that you could do that were implemented into the game previously. So yeah, however they wanted to do it, I think my thing is more of having those drops to make the rest of the content relevant. So it's like RuneScape. I love how I've had people in chat for like every podcast I've done recently. I've mentioned things in RuneScape, and I've never played RuneScape. I've downloaded it. I'm gonna stream it. I think I'm gonna play it. Yeah, or adding portals and instance content in a guild hall. Yeah, that would be cool. I actually have, this one is funny because I didn't know that this was an issue, and I'd read it to my husband. And he was like, yeah, a lot of, new players don't want to play the game or get freaked out playing the game because of this. So this person says, I would love an Arachnophobia filter. I know a few people who would really like the game, but the amount of spider stuff makes it hard to recommend. I didn't know that was a thing, but the post actually got quite a few likes. Have you ever heard of people like not wanting to play the game or whatever, or not wanting it recommended because of the amount of spiders? My husband actually said he had, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that was an issue.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that being a problem. What would they replace the spiders with, though?
Ladybugs, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's actually, yeah, so someone in chat just mentioned that ArenaNet once planned a spider mount and canned it for that reason. I don't know if that was like legitimately a thing, but what's funny about that is a couple of comments down on that same Twitter post where I had requested suggestions under the Arachnophobia was someone said that they wished that there was a spider mount or something that had like webbing or something that could like climb up walls or whatever like that, like specifically building walls that would climb. That would be like its mechanic. So I think it's kind of funny that earthworms. Yeah. So I think it's kind of funny that someone mentioned the Arachnophobia filter and then literally someone else was like, I really want a spider mount. And I didn't know that that was something that they were going to implement that did it, if it was actually true. So.
Yeah, no, they were going to add a spider mount. Well, I mean, not necessarily they were going to, but it got data mined out of the game that they had this concept at some point.
That's cool, though.
Yeah, I mean,
implemented. It's a slider that progressively makes it look more or less like a spider. So what? Okay, so what do they make it look like when it looks less like a spider? Like a blob?
It's a blob.
Like I'm actually like legitimately curious if they're that good. How much money do you have to put into your computer for a spider mount? Yeah. I thought this one was really cool because I've had where I've been doing a heart quest. And I'll go over and I'll slay something that has like close to the same name to grab whatever loot is requested to bring back. And it didn't count because it was too far out from the heart quest. So this person says, I would love to see the range of an active task heart when doing it. I like that. I don't necessarily think it should like be like a story instance thing where it kind of like boots you back or boots you out or whatever and like stops your progress or anything, but I think that'd be cool. Even if it was just like this heart is around this area and it just like was gold or something on the map. I don't know.
That would be a nice bit of quality of life for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah.
I've got a good one. Okay, I've got a good one. These changes, okay, like pure posting, they know what they're talking about. They're a bunch of noobs. Let me tell you the real deal. The real deal here. Remove agony resistance entirely from the game.
Yeah, that was actually one of them too. Removing, because a lot of people don't really understand how it works. Yeah.
Terrible mechanic, literally pointless at this point, and doesn't fit with Guild Wars 2. Remove it from the game. Horrible system.
Yeah. Everybody, yes, no. Wait, someone said no?
Yeah.
If you click on the heart on the map, it will spawn or despawn a circle on the mini-map. Agony is silly. Exactly. Everything should be positive all the time, and you should never experience agony.
True.
Delete spiders from real.
Yeah. Remove all spiders. Remove spiders from the game.
Ooh, this one is class-based cosmetics.
We already have that.
We do.
Yes.
That are like not like actual like cloth leather but like, oh yeah, we do, from like loot boxes, like element. Yeah, no, we do. I was just gonna say, because I opened something and picked it specifically for Elementalists the other day. Oh, I wonder how long it's been since this person played the game.
Yeah.
Change the butterflies to other patterns for mesmers.
Yeah.
Like to have that as an option.
These are a little niche. These are very niche.
Some of them are. Give collars and hats to ranger pets.
Okay, I like it.
Skin options for necro minions.
Yeah.
And banner skins for warriors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what I want to see in the game
on the gem store.
Let's talk about some macro stuff, because I'm not gonna lie. I think, well, when I say macro, I actually meant large, not about actual macros. I think actual macros, honestly, don't need that. Don't need that in the game, really. But I think when we're talking about improvements, this is a classic trap that people fall into. They'll suggest like, ooh, what if this incredibly niche exact thing in this exact area, in this exact way, with that exact thing, is what I want. And gamers, I'm going to tell you, you know what? I'm the kind of guy who'll rip the Band-Aid off. I'm not gonna piss about. That's useless. What is actually useful is talking about systemic improvements to the game, right? What are some things that we can say that, okay, this would be a key change that's going to significantly modify the game experience in a way that will improve it for all of the players involved. And we even see that with ArenaNet's approach, right? They've been making these systemic changes. They haven't been going, ooh, we're going to go in here and make this tiny, minuscule change with our development time. No, they said, right, we're going to apply raid emboldenment to every raid. Every strike mission CM is going to get more rewards. We're going to add a mouse cursor to the entire game, right? Like, these are very system-wide changes. They're not these little minutiae. Right. So yeah, there you go. So I think that one really cool thing that could be added to the game would be permanent bonus weekends, rotating bonus, and this would actually feed into a little bit what we were talking about previously with this idea of showing players what's available. Well, if you have a bonus weekend, then players are going to see what's available there because, all the players are going to be drawn towards it, and you get bonus loot at the same time. It's exciting. It's fun. Everyone's getting in there. Everyone's piling on. It nudges players to not play the same thing, so the game is less boring and less repetitive because you're trying different areas of the game. And it will be very easy for ArenaNet it will be kind of like almost like free content for ArenaNet, right? Because all it would be is just like a cycling series of bonus weekends that they can have automated that just make players engage with the game more. It's funny. I think that it's so amusing to me. And this is a classic situation, I think, in content creation and development as well. ArenaNet did incredibly well off Season of the Dragons, right? When they basically gave away all of their content, all the Living World stuff for free. And they just added a bunch of new kind of trivial achievements every week for the Legendary Amulet. That was unbelievably popular. But hang on, that was insanely low effort. ArenaNet put in very little work into that, right? It was like, okay, achievements, automate, go, done. Right? That was it. That was not high effort content from ArenaNet because they were basically sort of, right, we've got to keep people busy a little bit while we make our expansion here real quick. Stuff like this, I think, is incredibly high value for ArenaNet. So I think that's a pretty big one. Okay, bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going off of that too with the Season of the Dragon and Living World stuff, someone had mentioned for like specifically new players checking out like the free-to-play stuff, if there was like some kind of disclaimer somewhere, or like when you get into the game, something that tells you that there's Living World content available that could be that you don't necessarily have to do, you don't necessarily need to understand the story, but that it does have to do with the story, and that if you want it, you have to purchase it. Because a lot of people don't know that when they purchase the game that's free to play. And I think it's a step in the right direction to have Living World Season 1 be free no matter what, especially for, free to play accounts. But it would be cool if they had something like that was like, hey, these things are on the store. They do technically continue the story. And if you want them, you have to purchase them. So I liked that suggestion too.
Yeah.
But going back to the weekends, I remember, so I don't know if anybody in chat like had ever played World of Warcraft or if you're just a Guild Wars 2 person. But I think I leveled a character fully back in the day when they did Battleground weekend. So it was Alterac Valley weekend, when Alterac Valley was a big thing in the game, and it would be like an hour-long battleground or something like that to actually win, and they would increase experience from it, and so you could level the whole way. And a lot of people would have never played that map except for that weekend. So a Living World bundle, yeah. An expansion with Living World, yeah. That would be a good idea and simple.
Yeah, I think this is another, not exactly in the game, but in general, this is it's suffering from success to an extent. ArenaNet have made so much content over the years that when you buy the game as a new player, you're in a very weird spot. Because you bought the game, but hang on, there's another 5 seasons that you need to buy as well to experience all of it. And the story is continuous, right? So, if you don't play season 3, you're actually missing out on a lot of connective tissue, right? Between Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire, right? And if you don't play season 4 and Iceroot Saga, you're missing out on a huge amount of context for End of Dragons. So it's very weird. I think the ArenaNet definitely need to look at this and how you buy the game, right? Like, what does that look like? Stuff like some kind of bundle that would include all of it. Stuff like if you buy, there's some way where you can buy all of the relevant story when you're buying an expansion at the same time, right? For sure, like it's a very weird thing. I think it's tough to do this with MMOs. I think a lot of MMOs have this problem. I know that ESO and Final Fantasy also have pretty questionable game stores that make the game a little harder to buy than perhaps it should be. I know it does with ESO because I was going to try ESO a while ago actually. Some of the gang from World vs. World wanted to go try ESO. I was like, okay, let's go play ESO. So I make an account and I go on the website and it's offering me like 10 different packages. And I'm like, well, I don't know which one of these to buy.
Yep.
And I don't care enough to actually find out. And I closed the site and I haven't opened it up ever since. And yeah, I admit it. I lost a 1v1 to the ESO website. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I actually completely agree because I wanted to try ESO and I was like, everything, right? We're in 2022. And I'm like, so I'm going to try ESO, right? And everything has at least some kind of like free trial so that you can get a taste of the game. ESO has free weekends, free weeks, free anniversaries.
Oh yeah.
But there's no legitimate free trial. So like if you miss that, that set of dates, you don't get a free trial, which I was like, wait a second. Like I'm not going to purchase the game or any of these tiers off of the website if I don't know if I'm going to like the game. Now I understand having restrictions on a free trial. I understand having a limited trial, but I was, and that kind of turned me off. And I still do kind of want to try it. I don't know if I'll like the combat, but yeah. So exactly what you were talking about. So one of these suggestions too, which I guess I didn't really pay attention to when I was bum rushing through the story in EoD, because I didn't really pay attention to a lot of other stuff until after I had finished the story, was people were saying that they want griffin races and beetle races in EoD. And are there any beetle races? I thought there was one that you could unlock at the end of doing all of the mastery for I forget what I was talking about, but I thought there was one that you could unlock.
Then there are. This is one of the things about EoD that there are no adventures. There are no mount races.
That's what people were talking about.
And Dragons. Yeah. I think it's likely that it was just one of those things they didn't have enough time to add. Dragons was. They went all in. They really went for it to get this expansion out the door because they had to do it on a super short turnaround time. And as a result of that, it's actually not that polished in some areas compared to other expansions. It's not as fleshed out as other expansions are, for sure. And this is one of those areas that is indeed pretty lacking, right? We saw that in the reward structure. We see it in the adventures, right? Perhaps that some of the density of content on some of the maps, like Kaineng is not, I think, not quite as vibrant as people would have wanted it to be. For example, right? They probably should have tested Dragon's End a bit more than they did. There's quite a lot of bugs. A lot of bugs, and I have to. It's actually a legal obligation. I have to bring up Dragon's End at least once every stream, particularly now that Sneb is in the chat here as well, because Sneb is toxic and he wants Dragon's End to have 90% failure rate. Okay, he actually wants to toxic gatekeep people away from defeating that content. Right?
I'm sorry, Sneb. Yeah. This was not my intention.
Yeah. I've just embraced it now, There was a moment in time where I was like, okay, it's time to push back against the Sneb is toxic memes. But then Sneb dug his own grave. He kept coming on my stream, kept coming on Tea Time, and the YouTube comments, they destroyed him, right? The YouTube comments, they're very powerful, right? They can't be stopped. The goose is loose.
So EoD is End of Dragons. It's the newest expansion for Guild Wars 2 that had just come out recently. So a lot of the changes that we're talking about are things that we'd like to see in the future, but some of the suggestions that I had gotten are actually being implemented that we saw in a blog post yesterday. So yeah, on top of all of those, someone had mentioned skiff races, which I think would be really cool because speaking of Sneb, when we were doing our podcast previously, it's like, what is the reason we have skiffs? Just to fish. Like, it would be cool if there was another reason to have them. So skiff races, I think, would be really cool. Other than, like getting together and trying to like crash into other people's skiffs and things like that. But I mean, I know we could create them ourselves, but it would be cool if that was an actual adventure for
sure.
skiff races.
I think it would be cool, particularly seeing as it will be cooperative as well, because to truly use the skiff, you need to have multiple players to make you go even faster. It's End of Dragons. This is what happens when you try to escalate and you keep adding more and more features to your game. It's like you add elite specs, you have to make like a more exciting elite spec next time around, right? It's got to be better. It's got to be more, that's why you see power creep, right? They power creep the game over because it's like, we got to go bigger. Path of Fire's got to be bigger than HOT, and it is got to be bigger. It's got to be bigger, right? And it's the same thing with features, right? It's like, okay, we added gliding in Heart of Thorns. Whoa, that's crazy. Whoa. And then we're like, wait, now we add mounts in Path of Fire. Whoa, that's insane. Right? That's crazy. You've got fly hack now. You can literally fly hack around the map. Insane. Where do you go from there? It's a good question. And I think that End of Dragons Masteries really fell flat because of how much design space the game has explored. Not even necessarily the fault of the developers. It's just, where do you go? Right? Where do you go from there? Like, after you've done so much. It's a very interesting issue. And it's funny because, and this is actually where Guild Wars 2 being really well designed absolutely bites it in the ass, because you can never reset. In World of Warcraft, you can say, whoa, check out this really crazy system we added to the game. And it doesn't matter to the devs because it won't be relevant in the next expansion. Right, so you've got, whoa, artifact weapons. This is so crazy. Whoa. And then you reset, right? It's like, oh, gone. Right, cool system. That was fun. That was a fun system to play with. And then you add a new system, right, in the next expansion. And all of a sudden, artifact, you don't have this power creep. But more importantly than that, you don't have this system creep. System creep is, in my opinion, somewhat more pervasive and more insidious than power creep even. Power creep, you can just kind of, well, the numbers get bigger and bigger, but you can make the boss numbers bigger, right? So whatever, you can work with that. System creep is really hard to deal with because it makes your game incredibly complicated and confusing, but also bloated, right? And you keep having to layer on more and more things onto the game over time, and it just turns into a complete mess. And this is something that ArenaNet have really struggled with. And it's hard for it's almost impossible to solve that, really. In fact, it is impossible to solve that by the nature of the game. So they have to be super careful when they're adding new masteries and new systems. It's why they region locked some of them. But the problem is, if you region lock them so they only work, in Bureau Marches or whatever, right? They only work in these certain areas. Well, then the mastery feels kind of lame, right? But if you make it work everywhere, like the Way Station from Icebrood Saga, it's an absolute menace, right? And just is incredibly overpowered and oppressive in the way that you play the game. And they have to balance the entire game around it, and it just escalates over and over and over again. Like, this is a super hard problem for ArenaNet to solve.
Actually, I thought the idea of the bounties were cool. I don't know how many people actually do them for all the Path of Fire stuff, but I wouldn't be upset seeing them in End of Dragons. I think they're cool. I just don't know if they're even utilized now, or would be if they added them to End of Dragons. I can't believe you brought up artifact weapons. That was like one of the worst things in World of Warcraft for me was artifact weapons. They looked cool. It was cool to have a paladin and have Ashbringer when you were playing Ret, but oh my gosh, leveling those things up was the worst thing in the world. Artifact power, and oh my god. I'm so happy that I don't do anything like that or have anything like that in Guild Wars 2 that I would focus on. Oh my god. I actually had another one. People were saying that they think the turtle mount is cool, but they don't like that you have to cooperate with someone to use, like, to have its full potential to, like, utilize artillery and things like that. And they think that they missed the boat by not having it be able to walk underwater and do something with underwater combat artillery. So I don't know what you think about that. I think it would be it would have been cool. Like
it actually can. It can do that though. It can walk underwater.
Can?
Yeah, that was one of the things they showed off, is that it walks on the bottom of water areas.
I haven't gotten mine yet. I have half of the achievements. I actually did everything to be able to get it, but I haven't even done it. I thought that they only had it so that it could walk on land. And you can shoot the artillery in the water too?
Yeah.
Then why are people complaining?
Because they probably haven't unlocked it, so they don't know how it works.
I'm like, oh, I'll bring it up since it was a topic on the Twitter post, but what the heck? There should have been a boss where turtles attack from the seafloor and skiffs drop bombs from that would have been cool.
I mean, in the wise words of World of Warcraft developers, you think you do, but you don't, right?
Exactly.
Like, people go, oh, underwater combat, oh, I'm so excited. No, underwater combat sucks. Okay? It's not good. And having a boss that will be entirely based around mounts, it wouldn't be fun, right? I'm sorry, it wouldn't be fun at all, right? What's fun in Guild Wars 2 is, controlling your character and battling against monsters and working together as a team, right? Mashing the 1 key, right, on your siege turtle it's not good. If underwater combo got reworked a whole lot, then yeah, great. But I'm sorry, I don't want to be floating around on my skiff with an 8-second cooldown bomb, and that's my job, an 8-second cooldown bomb. Like, yeah, no. This stuff sounds really interesting on paper, but then you think about it and you go, actually, no. I don't think I do want this. In fact, I don't want this in the game. We need to not have it in the game.
Do you think people would enjoy underwater combat more if they reworked it?
Yes.
What I don't even know where they could begin to make people happy. I just leveling up and doing open world stuff with underwater combat. When I started playing, I actually thought it was pretty fun. I didn't really know why people were complaining. Because to me, I'm comparing it, and some people in chat said underwater worlds in other games, like nobody likes them. My big thing was all of the underwater worlds in Mario. Those gave me PTSD. But playing underwater stuff in Guild Wars 2, I actually thought it was kind of cool because I've never played another MMO that has underwater combat. So I thought it was okay. I don't know what would need to be done for other people to enjoy it. I don't know if you have any input on that, but
you just need to rebalance it and change the way boons work, and just make it more like regular combat, to be honest. Then it will be fine. That's just the main issue. A lot of abilities just don't work underwater, right? The most amusing is that if you're playing Mechanist, you just don't have your mech underwater. You just don't have it. It's like, okay.
That's true.
It's like, and the game is full of stuff like this, where the abilities don't work, right, underwater at all, because they'd have to code.
Or just don't make sense, I guess.
Yeah. It just doesn't really work. Underwater combat, this is going to be a really boring take, but underwater combat should just be literally the same as regular combat, but underwater. I don't think I'd even change weapons. I think that actually having underwater weapons was maybe a mistake. I think underwater combat
with having
I think
fire
it could be
underwater.
Yeah, you already have fire underwater. When you use if you play Elementalist.
You boil stuff though.
Yeah, but you throw out lava blobs. You throw lava blobs at people. It's fine.
Right, but the flavor text is supposed to be that you boil the water and okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Fireball underwater, no problem. You can have a flamethrower underwater on NG, easy, no problem. I think that it's just a system that just doesn't really need to be that way, just using the same abilities would probably be better for the game, a little bit differently. But yeah, that's the way to go. And when it comes to the mounts, the mounts being more useful, so here's the problem, and hopefully I can get this across to the gamers in the chat, so everyone will be on the same page here. So the problem with mounts is that if you want there to be a combat mount, it's going to be really niche. And this means that almost by definition, the areas where stuff like the turtle are going to be useful are going to be extremely low, because it's going to be niche. If it's like overpowered everywhere, well, that's just really bad design, right? That's not exactly good design there, is it? And they want it to be this kind of different thing that has its own like special place. But the problem is that special place is minuscule. It's very, very small in the way it gets used. And they can probably layer on more things in the future, like having more fortifications. Because, for example, the turtle's really good in Drizzlewood Coast because you want to break through gates and stuff, and you do siege damage. So you actually break down the fortifications really quickly on the siege turtle. That kind of stuff's pretty interesting. And they can add that in the future. But it's never going to be this thing where it's like, oh yeah, you're going to be wanting to use this in a boss fight. Because if they do that, they have to tune it exactly to the turtle, right? And then what do you do if no one's got the turtle? What happens then, right? If there's a boss that you need the turtle for and no one's got it, well, okay, that's a bit of an issue, isn't it? I guess you could kind of give people the turtle for free, right? So in other words, you kind of have the, on Dragon's End, for example, you can get some free turtles sometimes. You can have some NPC turtles. But it's like, we're getting into gimmick territory here. And I don't think you want to go too far down into the gimmick zone. You want to make it like a fun thing to use. You don't want to make it like this, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to get out the siege turtle now. That's not the way the game is supposed to be. And that's why I think mounts work best as movement, right? And funnily enough, also why I think that some of the mounts, particularly the Sky Scale, are kind of a mistake because they're too jack-of-all-tradesy. A lot of the mounts in Path of Fire were actually really well designed. Like Raptor is really good for being fast and leaping long distances. The Bunny for climbing up stuff, right? The Jackal for, the portal stuff and kind of quick bursts, like very bursty movement with the teleportation. The Skimmer for going over water, right? Like that's pretty cool. These are all very niche. So they all have their own niche and they function really well in that. But then you have something like the Sky Scale and it's like, well, hang on. Now I can just go everywhere on this one mount at this point, and it just dominates because of how cheesy it is, basically. Is it the most efficient? No. You're actually a lot slower than, say, if you use the Griffin, or if you use the Beetle, right? Or if you use the, the Raptor, or, use these other mounts appropriately. But the problem is that it's so general and so good at handling every situation that it starts to become the only relevant choice, right? For most players. And fortunately, not everyone has the Sky Scale, so people, it isn't a problem for everyone. But this is why you've got to be really careful with designing these systems because you don't want them to be too dominating and too overpowered. Because otherwise they just crowd out all the other systems and just bully the other systems, right? Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. To be clear, I'm aware that you can do this stuff with the mounts, but I really liked that the world the world required you to think about navigating it, right? Whereas I feel like if you keep adding more and more power creep, the decision making vanishes, right? I like decision making when I'm playing a video game. It's like, ooh, what ability should I take here? Ooh, what build should I play? Ooh, that's what, for me, that's what makes video games exciting, is what am I going to do? I'm looking at the information. How should I respond to that information? What am I going to do about it? How are we going to work together as a team? What can we do, right? That's the fun stuff for me. And when you add more and more systems that do this, it just turns into mush, right? It's just like, well, the Sky Scale is the right answer, right? It's just, oh yeah, okay, I guess we'll do this. Right? I guess I'll do that. And that's why I'm quite opposed to systems that trivialize the game and make decision-making less relevant.
Mm-hmm. I think the last one that I saw that was pretty cool was a photo mode. Either just like having a normal photo mode or also being able to use the Jade bot to take photos like a drone, which I think would kind of be cool.
Well,
they give another use to the Jade bot.
They did kind of add this, but it's very limited with the Jade bot, right? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of detach your camera and follow the Jade bot around. But it only works in areas where you have this certain little console thing, right? So it is limited, but I could see them expanding on that and maybe modifying that. So I think photo mode is not out of the question. I think that it would be really cool, though, actually, funnily enough. I think that would be a great system to add to the game.
Yeah, I do. I mean, especially with that. And then other people were talking about even more of a graphics overhaul, especially like with your characters. that there should be a graphics overhaul, which I honestly don't think would be out of the question, especially with the DX11 stuff. That could be something that they work on down the road.
I could see them doing this maybe, but actually on the other hand, no. So character models in Guild Wars 2 have got more and more flashy over time. The game already struggles to run even with DX11. And yeah, this is kind of a theory that I have. This is not confirmed, by the way. ArenaNet haven't commented on this. But I think one of the reasons why they reduced player caps on the End of Dragons maps is actually for performance reasons. Because those maps lag hard. They do. They lag. They do not run very well, particularly Dragon's End does not run very well at all. And I think that adding more and more character models just kind of crushes the game's performance quite a lot, and has continued. This has continued to rise. Flashier mount skins, right? Like more, more effects, like more particles on all these characters. So I think that updating character graphics and character stuff, it's maybe a little tricky for ArenaNet to do. Little hard for them to sort out there. But could I see it down the line? Maybe. But I think what you're more likely to see is not necessarily graphical fidelity upgrades. It's more like effect fidelity upgrades. For example, better lighting, right? I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Right? Like that sort of thing.
Like better lighting and shadows.
Yeah. Like that kind of systemic overhaul, rather than we're going to increase the resolution of all the textures. We're going to add more polygons to all of the characters. That maybe not, because I think the game is already chugging a fair bit.
Right. So the other cool thing I saw was someone had mentioned, instead of just having like a little blurb about classes, like having them utilize a weapon in the character creation screen and having like a little video of how they work, kind of like when they were showing off the new elite specializations, but not as long of a video, just kind of like, this weapon might not work how you think it's going to work if you're coming from a different game. But that could possibly be a lot, because there's so many weapons that you can utilize in different ways for different classes and then for elite specialization. So I don't know if it would be too much fluff, but I think that's kind of a cool idea, at least for the starting screen.
I think it'll be fun to have the full-on videos. I think some of them maybe could use a bit of a polish, bit of an update. But yeah, I think just show the videos. I think they're actually really cool.
And just have them available there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're really cool. I think that's fine. Yeah, I think it should show. I think it should show off the elite specs for sure. Like when you're selecting a character, because realistically, that's what you're going to be playing at endgame. A lot of the time. Sometimes there are some core builds, right, that are out there that are possible, particularly in PvP. You'll see some core stuff. But yeah, I think that'll be really nice, because there's a lot. There's a lot of classes. There's a lot of classes right now in the game. There's a hell of a lot. We got 3 elite specs now and core classes. We've got 36 classes in this game. It's intense.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool too if you could test them out before. Well, I mean, but you could also buy the weapons and test them out. But yeah, I know what you're getting for. But for Lost Ark, it's different because there's like, Teapot was saying, there's less. I don't know. It is a cool idea. I thought it was cool when someone suggested it, and then I was like, I don't know if it'd be too much fluff. But yeah, I think it'd be cool too.
Never have too much fluff.
No. What did you have to level your weapons at a certain time? I know for like in WoW you used to be able to utilize it to their full potential, and then you had to eventually get to
good system,
like your two-handed weapon. Actually, speaking of which, someone had mentioned two-handed axes, like two-handed melee axes rather than one-handed ranged axes too. But I think more people want to see.
I actually think that this is more. I don't think ArenaNet should add more elite specializations. Yeah, I went there. Maybe one more set, but the game is so complicated right now. Like, it is so brutal for new players to learn all of this stuff. It is horrible. It's so much. Okay, I just don't think they can. I mean, maybe one more set if they're really pushing it. Okay, but any more than that, like, this game is just such a mess, right? It's going to be impossible to balance. It's going to be really confusing to new people. You got a zillion builds to learn how they all work, particularly in PvP and World versus World. It's just, ugh. But I think adding new weapons, hell yeah. I think there are some really great examples where this will be really cool too. For example, Soul Beast in World versus World. So, in theory, Soul Beast is really good for a Zerg, for a ranger build in World versus World, but it doesn't really have weapon support for it. You don't have like a really good weapon choice. But what if you had like a double, two-handed axe, and you could like cleave down loads of enemies on your Soul Beast, and it was like a new weapon added to base ranger? Okay, that would be super cool. What if there were new utility skills? So now Spellbreaker, or maybe Warrior, gets some more Paragon-oriented abilities, like very support skills, because they're trying to make Support Warrior happen with, the Tactics trait line reworks, and they're changing how banners operate. So maybe you add some new skills to Warrior so that it can fill out that role. I think slightly more gentle updates to the skill system rather than the absolute nuke that is an entire set of new elite specializations is probably a more sensible way to move the game forwards. Now, and this is what another really big problem that I was talking about with this escalation. The issue is that if ArenaNet don't do elite specs, people are going to go, where are my elite specs, ArenaNet? Where are they? Why are you doing this? You're downgrading our content. How dare you? I hate you. I'm refunding the game, even though I bought it 10 years ago. And that's definitely a bridge that ArenaNet are going to have to cross. But I almost feel they don't have much of a choice, because, look, I'm just thinking about it from the confusion level, right, and the design level. It's just too much, right? There's honestly, arguably, already too much in the game.
I mean, we have people in chat that are already like, I'm new and it's too much information. Like, yeah, I totally get it, especially with the amount that you can just do on one character with like one spec if you really like it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it is a lot. But my son is crying, so he's probably hungry, so I should probably wrap up. Sorry, guys. I was like, he's crying, and I'm like, oh, poor thing, and I'm like muting my mic a little bit, because I'm like, people are probably going to think I'm just ignoring him. My husband is taking care of him. I promise it's okay, but I will have to feed him, so, yeah, so I'll finish the gem store giveaway stuff. So I'm giving away an item off of the gem store of your choice for worth 1,000 gems. So if you type gem into chat, no exclamation point, it's not a command, just gem, it will put you into the giveaway. So everybody do that real quick. Hopefully the person that wins didn't leave the chat.
I'm gonna win.
So, and then when you win, if you just send me a whisper of your in-game tag and the item that you would like off the store, make sure it's giftable. So if you just send me a Twitch message, I'll get it and I'll be able to get back to you. Unless you're in the Discord, you can send it to me via Discord as well. You have to type. No! But yeah, Teapot, so thank you so much for hanging out and doing this and taking time to give me your input on all of these things, because I thought they were really cool, and I was like, I like those. I just don't know how they'd be implemented, or because I feel like there are a couple of different sides of the community, so it's nice to get different opinions on it. But especially with your different schedule that you're working on right now, if you want to let everybody know, obviously, where they can find you, when they can find you now, and what you will be playing when you do stream and or work on your YouTube videos.
Yeah, I'm easy to find. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, MightyTeapot. Get in there right now. Follow, subscribe, hand over all your money to me and Xandrii, obviously. Okay. Of course, very grateful for you having me on. Okay, I really appreciate it. Always good to have a chat. It's good to see you around once again. You had a few things you were busy doing. Okay, not that important.
Yeah,
but,
it's just a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm streaming Guild Wars 2. I took a bit of time off, as we talked about at the start of the stream. I'm semi back now. I'll be streaming like 4 times a week, making some YouTube stuff, talking about the game, okay, doing some podcasts, doing the strike mission challenge modes, right? Just having a good time with the gang, arguing with Sneb on a daily basis. My constant quest is to convince the entire Guild Wars 2 community that me and Sneb actually hate each other, and we just argue all the time. And honestly, it's going really well. So definitely stay tuned for that one. And yeah, watch all the content, enjoy, like all my tweets. I'm a tweet master, so go check it all out there. Everything /MightyTeapot. Check it out. And once again, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was a great time.
Thank you. Oh, and just so everybody knows, this will also be on YouTube. I don't know if I'll be able to get it uploaded by the end of the day today, but definitely tomorrow morning. And if you missed any of it, so if you're not already following or subscribed to my YouTube, Xandrii on YouTube. I mean, it's under Xandblast Productions, but you'll get there, I promise, if you search for Xandrii. So, and are you going to be putting this up as well on your channel for me to put a link as well, Teapot, or?
Yeah, why not?
No? Yeah?
Why the hell not?
Cool.
I love free content. I love free content more than I love anything else. So it'll be around on my channel as well. And you can leave comments. You can write comments. You can tell us what you think. Yeah. You can give us your feedback and your suggestion for this stuff. Tell us how wrong we are.
Exactly. And if you guys like the podcast content and you want to see more and you have suggestions for different people, feel free to post them in chat, Discord, in the comments on YouTube. I would love to hear it. And if you guys actually think that these are fun, especially doing them live. So, but yeah, let's draw for the giveaway. An item off of the gem store worth 1,000 gems. Let's do it.
I win.
It's free content. All right, ready? And Akron.
Rigged.
I don't know if Akron has actually ever won anything from stream. But I can't say I'm upset because Akron is someone who's here like no matter what I stream and like what time I've streamed. So I'm actually excited about this. Nope, first time. All right. And I know you're in our Discord too, so just let me know what you would like. And I believe I have your tag already, but if you want to just post it again. So if you want to do a Twitch message and or Discord message or however you want to get it to me, just make sure to get it to me and I will get you the item. I'll leave a comment after reading the video title. What are you expecting it to be really clickbaity?
Oh yeah.
How are we supposed to get people to watch our content?
I mean, that's just the way people, people don't watch the video. Are you kidding me? People don't watch the videos before leaving a comment. You leave a comment before
nobody
you watch the
watches
video.
Nobody does.
Not how it's done. And you know what? Tell Sneb that he's wrong, even though he's not in this one. Okay, that's the real key. I want all of you here who are watching this now live. I need you just to say that Snebzor guy is a total idiot. No idea what he's talking about. Just like spam that in the comment section and everyone upvote it.
Oh, I didn't think to ask you. So I know that you had something set for tomorrow. You're not streaming right after this, are you? Because if you are, I can send everything there.
No, I'm not. Okay. No. Today, I'm chilling out, but just relaxing. We're having a good time. Yeah. I'm going to talk about the balance patch stuff because we're getting the balance patch notes and apparently some world versus world news too, which is fun.
Mm-hmm. Exciting. Yeah, so Akron, if you click on my name in chat, you can message me. Hold on. There. You can send me a message, or if you do it on Discord, that's fine as well. But yeah. All right then. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate it. Congratulations, Akron, on winning. And yes, it's 1,000 gems for an item on the gem store that's worth 1,000 gems that is giftable. So let me find someone to send you over to that I've never sent people to.
Where are we going?
It would be fun.
Let's invade.
I don't know if there's anybody streaming right now that I've never sent people over to. I know Chris is new and he's doing some of the stories. So if you guys are excited about that, I'll send you over to him for work to game. So, yeah. So if you guys want to, use the raid emote, if you're subscribed to me, it's this Quaggin with a spear. My husband made that Quaggin. I was actually really excited about it. So if you're subscribed and you use the raid emote, that's what the raid emote is. make sure to say hi. And if you're not already following me, make sure to follow and turn on notifications. I've been trying to get back to streaming every single day after being back from having my little boy. So I've only been able to stream for like 2 to 3 hours max currently, but I've still been trying to stream as much as possible. It hasn't been like a full schedule like every day at 9 o'clock, but I've tried to get a little bit of something if I could. So make sure to follow, turn on notifications so you can tell, and make sure to go over to Teapot's channel.
Yeah, definitely do that. It'll be a good choice, good investment.
Yeah, very good investment. But thank you so much, guys, and hopefully I'll be on tomorrow doing more Living World Season 1, Episode 2. I'm not exactly sure what time. I would like to be on around 8 a.m. Central, but I don't know if it's going to work. So just whenever. I'll be on at some point tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for everything, and thank you again, Teapot, and I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow.
Yep, no worries. Take it easy, everyone. Thanks, everyone, once again. It was a good time. Thanks for watching, gamers.